Welcome back to KTN Prime. Many thanks for staying with us here on KTN News. Here, the news comes first, and the news doesn't stop. Let's go back to that conversation we were having about the Kenya-Somalia diplomatic row. And we are speaking to Dr. Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the Kenya National Assembly, and Dr. Patrick Maluki, Chairman, the Diplomacy Scholars Association of Kenya. Let me come to you, Mr. Maalim, from where we left off this conversation. Let's begin here. Is Nairobi wrong to host the Somaliland president here?
Well, I don't think anybody can come in here. Somaliland president can come in here. But if he comes in at the invitation of a head of state, and he gets a head of state's treatment when he comes in here into the country, where, of course, a flag is displayed of that country, which is not a flag that's displayed in any other multilateral body at the AU or at the United Nations or at any other body. Tentatively, it is basically tantamount to assume that there is a willingness to recognize this as a sovereign state when the sovereignty lies in somewhere else. So I think it's wrong. We're very wrong in doing that. I mean, it's good to call a spade, and the only way we can help our own country here is to be very, generous with the truth in certain cases. I do understand sometimes you try and up the ante to try and squeeze an adversary into some kind of a corner so that you can get certain concessions. But this, I think, is the wrong way to do it. And we had tripled in the internal affairs of that country before by promoting somebody who was hitherto just a warlord, and essentially from that country itself, and imposed him as the president of a region. When the people of that place and the center itself and all of them are opposed to it, we were willing to shed our blood. Because when even the force commander, the AMISOM's force commander, who was an Ethiopian, came in there, he was denied access to land with his plane in Kismayu. And our forces stopped the Ethiopians from going in there.
So let's speak about that, Mr. Maalim.
Now let me just finish.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And then again, now we go beyond that. And we invite a breakaway, region. And this is something not even the superpowers of the world do have the courage to do that. Donald Trump or any of the big nations in the country that cannot dare do that. Invite and give a kind of a head of states kind of a treatment to a breakaway secessionist, state that does not have any recognition in the world. I was talking this morning to an American friend who is an expert in security, and he said Kenya is behaving like a very powerful superpower state in Europe in post-Cold War, like the UK or the French or the rest of them. Even those ones would hesitate to do that. I don't mind the kind of a low-key kind of visits that Igal had here, Riale had here, but the manner in which we have dealt with this one, displaying the flag, that official function between the two heads of states, is I think, going a little bit too far. We would not, there any other country doing that to us.
Talking about Jubaland, Mr. Maalim, that semi-autonomous southern state borders Kenya, and insiders tell us that the Kenyan government usually needs to keep a close eye on it because it is the buffer zone between Kenya and Somalia. In terms of Al-Shabaab militants, they say, the government argues it is doing this for security purposes. What's your take on that?
It did not stop Westgate. It did not stop Dusit. It did not stop the big swaths of our own northeastern province, which is right now being roamed by Al-Shabaab in the way they want. It did not stop any of those ones. As a matter of fact, if you go into the details of it, we have had more attacks after we went into Somalia than we have it now. In any case, where are we engaging Al-Shabaab? Are we fighting Al-Shabaab and engaging them? I don't see us engaging Al-Shabaab anywhere. We just opened up a corridor and went all the way to Kismayu and stayed put there. And I mean, so basically, to be honest about some of these things, to be a patriotic Kenyan is to be honest to your country and understand the consequences of some of the things that we do. Can I tell you something about a failed state? when Liberia was becoming a failed state, how far Benin or Cote d'Ivoire had a powerful role in that. Sierra Leone had a role in that. Guinea-Conakry had a role in that because they were the neighbors. They all eventually ended up becoming failed states also. So getting sucked into some of these things and playing the domestic politics of those countries is not good for us. It's very dangerous for us, I can assure you. And the reason why somebody like me feels passionately about these things and wants to have that powerful intellectual persuasion to deal with it, instead of having psychophancy, and this is not BBI. This is not the ODM, Jubilee, wiper kind of politics. This is our national security and the future of this country. And the reciprocity in what do you call it, international, yeah.
From where you see it, how should Nairobi approach this?
International, what do you call relationships, yes. I think Nairobi, the best thing Nairobi is to deal with the center. Look, we have a heterogeneous, very diverse country here. You look at our friends in Ethiopia. The same ethnic group across the border in there stretches all the way to our coast. You go to Tana River, Hussein Dado, our Kas and the former governors and all of them, they have their own cousins on the other end. We have a similar thing with the Tanzanians. We have a similar thing with the Ugandans. We have it with the Somalis. We should be the last people who will try and be seen to be hop-nopping with the secessionist movement, because we can potentially become a victim also at some stage in the future. So this is not something we should take lightly, and I think we have to have a very deep thought about it. We are losing a lot. We are losing the international standing, we are losing the regional standing, we are losing the continental standing, and they're coming out better than us. This is the reality of the matter.
All right. Dr. Maluki, let me come.
Kenya was supposed to be the real power in the region.
All right. Dr. Maluki, let me come to you. Do you agree with Farah Maalim's words there? And from where you sit, how do you think the government of Kenya should approach this? It is getting rather dire now. What are the next steps for us?
Yes. One, it is unfortunate that quite a number of missed opportunities have occurred, which should have actually been utilized to build better relations between Kenya and Somalia. Where is the bad blood coming from? I think the worst bit of this came from the maritime border. And countries all over the world experience frictions in a number of issues. And one of the best ways of dealing with disputes is to give negotiations a chance. Why? Because in negotiations, there are quite a lot of things, there are a lot of trade-offs. You can slice issues. Like now we are discussing this visit by the Somaliland president, which is becoming contentious. But believe you me, if Somalia had entered into negotiations with Kenya, maybe some of these things have been ironed out. That we have these brothers who are doing A, B, C, D. Is it possible that you deal with them in this? So in other words, we have to look at the missed opportunities and now move forward and see what opportunities exist for us to build a better relationship. I mentioned that I think it is good that Kenya did not retaliate despite what Somalia did. Kenya has been very calm, and this is the way to go. We have to be patient with each other. Kenya and Somalia, as countries, as peoples, are going to exist. We have existed for 8 centuries, and we are not ending anywhere. And so what I think should happen is that let there be dialogue. I would wish that despite the expansion of our top diplomat, Kenya can still engage in dialogue with Somalia, and whatever issues that maybe have angered the government of Somalia can be discussed, and the two leaders.
Interesting that you say that, Daktari. There's a group of Kenyans, there's a school of thought that indicates that Kenya deals with Somalia with kid gloves when it comes to some of these issues, especially that maritime border dispute in the Indian Ocean that you mentioned. Do you agree with that? Should Kenya be firmer? And is that maritime border dispute where the rain started beating these two countries?
Okay, in my opinion, I think that is the issue that has really worsened the relations. And the most unfortunate thing is, because this is my opinion, and I'm talking like a scholar, there seems to be some political mileage being gained by the current Somalia administration with the enmity of Kenya. That when there is a issue on dealing with Kenya, the leadership in Somalia gains more favor or more popularity. This has happened in politics, but it's regrettable that political leaders must see beyond even their own tenure. And with this, if that situation actually obtains, it'd be unfortunate because a situation that could have been managed better is escalated because of some political mileage. Let us be honest. Africans are Africans, and we have to live with each other. So when it comes to the maritime border issue, there is more than just we see, because there is that issue of trying to utilize that opportunity to gain political mileage. And it becomes a little bit difficult to deal with such a situation. Kenya and Somalia are not the only countries which have had maritime borders. And any issue can be negotiated. You know, countries have negotiated many things. So, yes, right, it is true. Border issues are very sensitive. But still, I think the situation has been like used for political mileage. And that would not be fair. It has made it very difficult. Otherwise, quite a number of possible solutions could be found in that problem.
Mr. Malim, let me come to you. Before I talk to you about the maritime border dispute between Kenya and Somalia, you have said that these are serious issues that cannot be dealt with like they are, like the way we deal with our politics, like the BBI and all that. But some Kenyans would say that Somalia is doing exactly that with the presidential election coming up in a few weeks' time. There are those who say that President Farmajo has been using these issues, these tiffs with Kenya, to gain political popularity and try to stay inside Villa Somalia. What do you say to that?
Yes, you know, Ben. Sometimes when we assume the cleverness of other people and take them for granted in such a lackluster and very pedestrian and juvenile way, I get disappointed, because when you say we are handling them with kid gloves, and when you say he's trying to mobilize, we're doing exactly that. It's exactly that. We are meddling in their own region. They're not in our country. We then again go ahead and invite a breakaway president of a region and give him a head of states kind of a reception, and then you expect them not to react. You know, you say we are handling them with kid gloves. How else would we have handled them, if I ask you? Because when they say they don't want Mira, you have already stopped. There's no trade between Kenya and Somalia. There used to be a lot of trade along the border. The border is closed. So why do you assume that they will allow you to take your stuff to go and sell in their own country, which for all practical purposes is questionable, whether it is not food, it's a stimulant. And then you don't expect them to bring anything in here because the border is closed. You expect to travel into their country and walk in and get the visas. All right. You don't expect to give them this reciprocal, what do you call, treatment. I mean, what do you think? You think you own them? You see, you have to understand that people are like you. They think like you. So the best thing is fairness. When you're dealing with somebody, that dignity and respect has got to be there. It doesn't matter how strong and powerful you are and how weak and failed they are. There has to be, these are two sovereign states.
Fair point.
We will have to deal with them in the manner, basically, we expect them to deal with us.
Fair point, sir.
So what I'm saying,
would you say that...
I'm saying these things as a patriotic Kenyan because we stand to lose much more.
Fair point. Would you say that President Farmajo has played some politics on his part with these issues?
Well, we played politics. Everything we did was playing politics, and he's also going to play politics. We have handed him on a silver platter the presidency of Somalia. Today, he's the most popular person up there, and he'll be elected. I mean, it doesn't matter how much Kagwanja writes in there because he gets a consultancy from somebody in those places, or he has a liking for that. How do you, as another country, as people who are senior in a country, say that we were going to wait for when Farmajo leaves? We are talking about post-Farmajo. It's like somebody Uhuru on his second term, either Tanzania or Uganda, saying that we are going to deal with Kenya in the post, what do you call Uhuru? We will all rally again, around our president, because we can see our neighbors don't like him, and we say, well, they don't like him because he's good. He's patriotic.
All right, as a
and
final,
that's exactly what's happening right now.
As a final comment, talk to me about the Kenya-Somalia maritime border dispute in the Indian Ocean. Who do you think is to blame for that?
Well, one thing is that thing is in the court. We have subjected ourselves there. We went in there and attended the court and defended the case. They went and also prosecuted their own case. This is a matter that is in an international court. It's only fair to wait and see what comes out of that court. And then, of course, then we come together and agree. If Kenya wins the day, then, of course, they will want to say, what can we do together? I mean, how do we move and heal the wounds between us? If they win it, the same thing also. So if now Uhuru pulls out of that case and says, okay, Somalia can take the maritime disputed area, Uhuru is going to lose the following day. We will all, the whole nation is going to rally against him. If Farmajo does that, he is not going to survive for a week. You have to understand this is politics. And politics, you have to find a clever way, a win-win way of coming out of that. And anybody who right now blinks as far as that is concerned between the leadership of the two countries comes out as a loser, and in the eyes of his own country is going to look like he's not worth being the leadership he's in. So I think what needs to be done is they need to come together, the two of them, talk about these things exhaustively and say, okay, let's wait until this matter is resolved by the court, but then let that not be the end of it. Let's sit down again together and see how we are going to share those resources.
All right. Thank you, sir. Many thanks to both of you for coming into KTN Prime and talking to us about this issue. Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the Kenya National Assembly, and Dr. Patrick Maluki, Chairman of the Diplomacy Scholars Association of Kenya. Many thanks to the two gentlemen. Let's now take you to the South Coast, where we have been keeping an eye on the parliamentary by-election there. The people of Msambweni went to the polls today to elect their next member of parliament.